Hey, what's going on, everybody? We'll be sit down and shut up. Another episode. Happy Friday night. Halo, what's good? And Cross, thanks for the follow. Appreciate you. I thought you had followed before, but anyway, it's all good. Appreciate it. So welcome in, guys. Today we have RubberDucks, so let's get them on. Hey, RubberDucks, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome. How's it going, man?
Doing good.
Good. So it looks like you're on Bison now. Is that right? Like you were on Honda before, but swapped to Bison.
Yeah, I was actually on Bison originally, then switched
Okay.
to Honda, then back to Bison.
Okay, right on, right on. So last time we talked, we were talking kind of about some corner defense stuff, as well as some, reducing usage of DI and all that. Bison Pilot's a little different than Honda. So what kind of stuff are you kind of looking or running into right now? You think you're struggling in your games?
I would say when and when not to be aggressive.
Okay. So just like
I tend to
general,
go
like,
full,
okay,
sometimes I tend to go full out.
okay, okay. So
I've
when you
been
go
trying to
full out,
work
what
on it, but
happens? Like you get blown up because they are able to stop your offense, or you run out of drive, or what happens?
uh, bit of A, bit of B.
Okay. You go out, you're on offense, right? You're doing drive rushes, you're pressing buttons on plus and all that stuff, and then all of a sudden you run out of drive, you're burned out, and then they're just able to take the game from you from there.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. So let me get you invited here. Is this still a rubber ducky with a Y, right? Is that still your CFN? All
Yes.
right.
Yes.
I think that's probably you. Cool.
Yep.
All right, cool. So this is Runback's episode, so we're probably only gonna do one first to three. We'll do a little more replay review and some lab work potentially on that. It was a different character before, so it may be a little different, but I think we'll kind of cover, we'll try to cover as much stuff as we can for the most part. But anyway, same deal. I'll run a first to three. I'll duff it in Discord, all that good stuff. We'll run it through, and then we'll go from there. So go ahead and queue up, and we'll go going.
Yep. Do, do,
All right, good
do.
luck.
Look.
All right, so last time I played Rubber Ducky, I guess I'll just call them Rubber Ducks, whatever. Rubber Ducks. Last time I played them, they were on Honda, obviously. They're running into some issues in the corner, mostly around some corner decision making on defense, right? So kind of selecting options that tended to lose to multiple things like DI and neutral jump, right? Additionally, some of their neutral decisions kind of involved around DI in general, so let's see what's going on with their Bison. So poke gets whiff punish. I wonder if that was supposed to be if that was a wake up DI or if that was like a derev, because I feel like a derev would have been better there. Okay, so I think if they're using Bison's neutral skips like the scissors and the devil's reverse, oh shit. No confirm, unfortunately. Nice. Okay, I see what they mean by their aggression or lack of aggression being mixed up. So like, I think the main issue right now for him is, besides some of the defensive corner making decisions or whatever, I don't think he's too comfortable with Bison's buttons in neutral yet. So like, that's really good poke right there, right? That button. But I feel like they're not able to control space effectively, right? Jump into the corner is tough. Yep. Oh. Oh, I see what they mean though, right? If they run out of meter, I feel like they reversal here? Oh. Okay. Yeah, I think it's a wake up loves D-Rev, loves wake up D-Rev. Yeah, I mean, it's a good option for Bison. It's just you can't use it too often, right? Like if I just come up here and do a light, right? If I had waited, it's a punish, right? And anti-air. Nice. Okay. So yeah, I think I have an idea though, and I think what it revolves around is not being too comfortable with Bison's tools in general at the moment. So I haven't seen one scissor kicks yet, and like they're poking with a Sam medium kick, which is fine. Okay. I guess they weren't just blocking there. Backing up after pressure. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, it sent me a mile high. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's just some neutral neutral stuff. We could probably talk about that. I think the corner decision making does rely on D-Rev a lot, which is, you know, reversal option is what it is. Like if you're gonna rely on it, it's fine, I guess, but you really have to select it less. Uh-oh. Especially burning out for this stuff. Okay. Yeah, it's just, I think it's just neutral, neutral interaction familiarity, I suppose, with Bison. So let's bring it back on. Hey, so what do you think?
Oh,
Tough one, huh?
I think it. Oh, I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Oh, oh. So what'd you think about that set?
I think I did a little worse.
Yeah,
I felt like some of my drive impacts. Well, some of my drive versus came out as drive impacts, and I kind of face palmed for it.
yeah, yeah. And I noted that on stream too. I was like, those are probably meant to be D-revs, right? And that's fine. You know, that's just lab work, whatever. Excuse me. But the real issue I think ends up coming around over usage of that as a defensive option in the corner, or in general, I suppose. And then some of it also is just some familiarity with Bison's buttons in general, I think, right? So if we take a look at, let's take a look at one of the replays here, and I'll talk about what was happening. I think the game 2 that we played, maybe game 3 would probably be the one. Let's take a look 1 sec. So I'm sharing my screen in Discord like last time, so let me know if you can see it, and then we'll just grab, I think, this one.
So,
Cool.
where would it be at?
The stream? So I'm streaming it in Discord, so if you take a look at the,
Okay, here we go.
yeah,
I got it now.
in the VC, yeah, okay, cool. Alright, so, I think, again, a lot of what was happening in the neutral game, I think a lot of it kind of boils down to, your sort of unfamiliarity with Bison's tools overall, like how to use what buttons when and how to space things. Because you're using the stand medium kick, right? And this is a great poke, I think, right? Being able to use this at range, right? And you do it pretty well right here, right? You hit me at a decent enough range, right? Poke me, push me back, right? So this is good, right? You're controlling the space in front of you for the most part here, right? But ultimately what happens after you do this is important too. So let's take a look what happens, right? So if you take a look, right? If you look, you land this on block, I get pushed back. And then instead of taking up the space and walking forward a little bit, you elect to walk backwards, right? So you give up the space you just gave. You just obtained, basically, right? So well-placed poke on hit or on block is going to cause your opponent to back up, right? Either you hit them or this on block and they have some blocks done and there's pushback, right? So you to hit me, it pushed me back too, right? And then obviously if you counter hit or punish counter, whatever, there's some conversions or whatever potentially. But that's like doing this kind of negates the whole reason for you throwing the poke in the first place, right? So we're both like at the beginning of the round, we're both in this position here. We're both jockeying for control of the stage, basically, right? So that lands, you back up, right? Now look what happens when I do my poke, right? Let's see if I do something different. I land this on hit. You block it. It's a little close, right? So Ken is kind of in trouble here. It's a little close, right? But you elect to back up again. I don't have to do anything now, right? I throw a fireball to try to regain the space, right? So some of what was happening to you as to why you were getting pushed back while playing me is because when you do something and get a positive outcome, like, you know, me blocking one of your pokes, for example, that's positive for you, technically, right? Even though it didn't hit, the reward for you is not being taken, right? So you're not taking up the space. Versus when I did my thing, I was too close, technically, so I had to be a little careful here. But then when you backed up, I'm like, okay, I don't have to back up anymore, right? That said, this was good, right? So I threw one too many fireballs here. You end up hitting me with the crusher, right? Worked out. I think that if you were jumping back here to try to gain that space so that you could throw the crusher, it's probably not a bad idea either to force me to throw fireballs. But longer term, right? If I adjust to this and stop throwing fireballs at that range, then you can't really use this crusher anymore, right? So, anyway, okay. Not sure what happened here. It looks like you just kind of got hit. I think you maybe weren't blocking, or you're going for a button here, didn't come out. Maybe. Let's see.
I think I dashed too much and I tried to press something, but I didn't press it soon enough.
Soon enough. Yeah, it's all good. And then from here, you just kind of weren't blocking. It looks like, or something happened here because this is not normally a combo. So it looks like maybe you were not blocking for a second here. Something happened that allowed you to get hit. What happened here? Sorry, this is a little bit strange because the crouching light punch into crouching medium punch for Ken is not a normal combo. You have to have that on counter hit or better. So let's see what happened. All right, so one too many dashes. You're neutral here, holding down forward for the kick. Right, so this is what you're saying. Right, you probably did one too many dashes and you're trying to press the button, didn't come out. Here's the startup of my button. Right. So that ends here. Recovery is done. I press my button here. This hits you. Right. You're holding down during this. Down forward. Okay, you just weren't blocking. That's unfortunate. So it looked like you were trying to do something here. Maybe a scissor kick or a light kick or something.
I think I went too fast.
Yeah, and it didn't come out, and you weren't blocking here, right? So anyway, it's all good. I was just like, that. I remember noting on stream, I was like, oh, that was a little bit weird. Anyway, you take that. All right. So this was game 3, and I think you had established pretty well that you like doing wake up D-rev here, right? I even said on stream, if I bait it here, you're going to take a punish, right? So usage of this reversal option sprinkled in is fine, right? Especially as Bison, who doesn't really have like a wake up reversal, right? Like this is kind of his main defensive option without meter, active anyway. So using this in a vacuum is okay, but over reliance on this is going to get you killed, right? Because not only are you spending 2 bars here, you're going to take a 6-frame punish, right? So from Ken, that ends up being something like this, right? And usually that cancels the run DP, so 2,500 damage or whatever, right? But the main thing is that you're losing bar for this, right? So you had bar, right? I do a meaty jab here to bait out the D-rev, right? Because this is going to recover in time. You see? Right? It recovers before your hitbox comes out. That's how meaty jabs work, right? The jab is really short, right? And all that. So with that, right, you end up taking this defensive option, losing 2 bars for it, it gets baited, right? So it's similar to like, you know, any other character that does reversals, right? If it's blocked, you have to use reversal less often, right? So typically what you want to be doing here is just blocking, maybe delay teching, potentially if I'm doing a lot of throws, right? And some lower risk defensive options, right? Because this is a big read, right? This is going to work if I went for throw, or if, you know, I went for some big meaty button or something else. But if I do anything else, right? So if I do a meaty jab that recovers in time, so not a meaty medium, meaty heavy, right? So a meaty light, something like this that recovers in time, it's going to beat it. If I shimmied, neutral jumped, right? Any sort of the common offensive options that people will do, even like a delay button potentially, this will D-Rev will lose to those things, right? The only thing D-Revs really beat are like meaty strikes and meaty throws, and specific meaty strikes as well, right? So meaty strikes that have recovery that will go into the frames here, right? So like if I did like a meaty heavy punch or something that has a longer recovery time, then it'll beat that, right? But you know, otherwise it'll lose to a lot of options, right? Similar to reversal, right? And overall, like any sort of reversal option, reversal super, whatever. You really don't want to be selecting this primarily, right? Like it shouldn't be your primary defensive option. It should probably be something you sprinkle in and select less of, right? So anyway. And then here is something that happens a lot. We kind of talked about this before, is that after people will tend to move after you get hit. So if we take a look at the situation here, right, you D-Rev, I drop my combo here. So basically reset to neutral, right? I jab. And then just go into crouching medium kick, right? And the reason that tends to work is because after you block the stand jab or any sort of button, folks will tend to hold back, right? So they'll down block or stand block if it's a high, whatever. They'll block something and then they'll try to move back, right? They'll try to move away from the opponent. So if you're in range of a crouching medium kick from someone like Ken or something else, right, that could be a bit of a problem, right? And I don't even need to delay this necessarily, so I'm kind of making a read on your movement here by saying I'm going to do the stand jab and a crouching medium kick. I don't even delay it. But what's happening is you're kind of wanting to back up out of pressure, and that's what ends up tagging you, right? So when you block things in neutral, just be careful about walking back. I think it's better to, especially on like a jab, right? It's better to kind of plant and sit and wait, you know, block low. Because if you block the crouching medium kick, cancel, and Jinrai, right, you have a chance to get out of that, right? And then you can deal with that mix-up. Or if I did a drive rush, for example, you can try to deal with that. But if you get hit, you're just going to take damage, right? So try to stand your ground a little bit better, or a little more in those situations, right? You block something, be willing to just kind of block, right? Most buttons in the game, again, are minus, right? So if you block a single hit, right, the opponent isn't doing anything and you know you're plus, you could potentially press your own button there if the space is correct for it, right? So if I did that jab too close, and it's not really a space trap anymore because it's really close, you can try pressing, you know, a 6-frame button like Bison's crouching medium punch or something to try to take the turn back, right? Because it can be, if you don't and you keep getting hit like this is gonna kill you eventually, right? Because every time you block something, even though you blocked it correctly, you got hit right after, right? And that'll kill you eventually. So, all right, so good jump, right? But then I challenge you with this button, like with my jab here, right? So what happened? How did this hit you? So if you look, right? So Bison's stand medium punch here is 0. Meaning there's no frame advantage on block for either of us when this happens. So on 0 like this, right, both of us can act. So I elect to press a jab, and you elect to press crouching medium punch, right? So I do crouching light punch, you do crouching medium punch, right? So obviously my 4-framer is going to beat your 6-framer, I think is what it is. Let me just make sure that's correct. But the my button is faster than yours, right, in that situation. So in a 0 situation, point blank, if you are going to mash something, I do think that mashing a 4-frame makes the most sense, typically, right? If I'm not, or it has to be a read, you know, so if you land that button on me on block, and you kind of observe what I do after, right? Do I mash something after? Do I back up? Do I block? Do I parry? Etc. Right? That's what you would do, and then you can press something other than a 4-frame, right? But in this case, if you're both 0, right? So I blocked it, we're 0 here. Press a 4-frame instead, basically. So that would be Bison's crouching light punch, I think. Yeah, crouching light punch for Bison. So, or I think crouching light kick too probably is 4-frame. Is it? No, it's 5-frame. Yeah, crouching light punch, right? So you'd hit that button instead, and then you would try to confirm that into like the was it the bomb plant or whatever, right? So light bomb plant. Okay, so go move on from here. Right, so I confirm that into some small damage here, right? And we're back to neutral, right? So let's see what happens. I try to poke out with a crouching medium kick, right? Stay medium kick. It's good stuff. Go for a big button here, right? The stand heavy punch from Bison, but it hits me, right? So you're plus. So what happens after this? Right, unfortunately, not able to really do anything off of it because it was kind of spaced, but that's okay. You block the drive rush, right? You don't tech, which is good. The DI works. I'm not sure if that was supposed to be a DI in general, but it worked, right? So that might have been a D-Rev, huh?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe here.
I wouldn't surprise me.
So he went for D-Rev after this, right? So it didn't come out, ended up DIing. I tried to press my stand heavy punch, and I tried to cancel this. I unfortunately inputted a Jin right here, but if I had canceled it, obviously I would have gotten it, but it's okay. So he landed DI here. Right. So this one is tough, right? So from here, right, you land a DI. Okay. So let's evaluate the situation from here, right? So you're down on life. I still have pretty full life here. After that DI, you have half a bar left, right? I have a bar, almost 2 bars here. Super wise are both the same. It's 1 bar, so let's not worry about that too much. But looking at this, right, like this should dictate what you do next. And I think that after landing this DI, I would take whatever Bison's meterless conversion here into bomb plant would be, right? So if you do a meterless conversion to bomb plant, you would actually gain maybe half a bar back, whatever that ends up being. But your drive would be in a better position than it is now, right? Instead, you go for this combo, which burns you out, right? You don't get the bomb. You don't get the bomb plant, unfortunately, right? And then
I wouldn't be able to bomb plant after that.
Okay, so that's a conversion doesn't give you a
bomb
plant, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to go into the sliding kick, but it didn't connect.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, it's a pickup, right? It picks me up out the and that's a fine conversion. But I do think that as Bison, you want to be using bomb plant as best you can in a lot of the situations, right? If you have a route that leads to that situation, you want to take it basically. Because again, if you take the meterless bomb plant from here, right, whatever that ends up being, right, you know, that would be a much better meter situation, right? So, not quite sure what Bison's DI combo would be from there. It's probably something off a crouching medium punch would be my guess, but I don't actually know. But at any rate, like your meter situation,
or crouching heavy punch into a heavy bomb plant.
Something simple, right? It doesn't have to be necessarily anything big, right? Right. So even if I just do something like that, right? Well, that would burn you out. But you see the situation, though, right?
Yeah.
Right. So now, if we look at the meter situation, you have a bar, right? I have to deal with the bomb now. And, you know, it's basically your opportunity to get offense going, right? Because with Bison, especially, a lot of his offense does kind of revolve around usage of the bomb, right? So being able to press your advantage when you can get plus frames because the bomb is either about to explode or you do something that detonates it, right? Either of those things are what allow Bison to be as good as he is, right? Because he gets a lot of plus frames, or at least not minus frames, in situations where he should be minus, right? So he can like kind of pressure you with impunity because the bomb is coming, right? So he'll just, you know, time it so that he'll do a string of some kind, the bomb will blow up, you're forced to block that, you're minus again, and then Bison continues his pressure, right? You have to deal with another mix-up, right? So again, I don't play Bison, so I can't tell you exactly what the conversions are, but what I can tell you is that that's how typically I see Bison's play, right? So you prioritize routes that give you bomb plant if they don't have the bomb on them, right? Or even sometimes if they do, you could do that. And then once you have that on them, you kind of use your neutral skip tools, or not, but you can walk in, I suppose. But you use your tools to try to get in so that you can pressure them with strings of some kind. And then once the bomb detonates, you're still plus. It's still your turn, so you can continue your pressure. Right? You get an additional mix-up opportunity off of that, right? So that's how you would normally press your offense with Bison, right? So anyway, go back to that. So you get the DI, right? Burn out for it. Don't get the pickup, but still get the throw, which is fine. right? And we're kind of back to this neutral, right? But what's tough here is that you don't have meter anymore, right? So you kind of have to be careful about what I can do in terms of drive rush or anything else. So let's see what happens here. And then I just kind of DI you as you've been using the stand medium kick, right? And then just goes into super, right? So again, I think that some of the issue just is that you know, your neutral game with Bison, just you just need to get comfortable. Because I don't think I saw you use one scissor kicks outside of the combo route, right? That you did. So space scissor kicks.
Yeah, I never
really
tried to use this
yeah
raw scissor kick.
Yeah, I think it's something you should try to incorporate more. I know miss space you can get punished, right? It was a 5-frame punish, but you know, a lot of Bison's offense does kind of stem around usage of that too, right? So being able to use that effectively in neutral space by making me have to deal with that or forces me to think about it now, kind of allows you to walk forward without having to deal with me trying to poke you, right? Because if you get a counter hit or you know hit me, you know, low crush or whatever, you get a combo conversion that leads to a scissor kicks that leads to a +2 situation for you, right? So you get another mix up, right? So you land the scissor kicks, you get a mix up opportunity, go for strike throw, right? You can either try to throw me or you can go for a shimmy, right? And that leads to more damage, right? So you get a mix up opportunity there. And that's one of like Bison's key things in neutral, is being able to use those scissor kicks effectively so that I have to deal with that. Because if you space it correctly, it's very difficult to punish. Or even Ken has like a really privileged 5-frame standing light kick. If you space that correctly, it can be very difficult for me to punish that, right? So I think it's worth going to the lab, checking ranges and stuff, and learning how to use Bison scissor kicks in neutral. Again, it's not something you want to rely on necessarily, but adding it to your game will help make some of this neutral navigation a little bit easier, right? And the reason why that's the case is because you start taxing your opponent's mental stack, right? So now I can't just like look for stand medium kicks and try to whiff punish that. Now I have to deal with not only that, but like scissor kicks, jumps, doubles reverse, whatever, right? So, right, so that was good. Fireball gets blown up. Okay, good conversion here into the bomb plant, right? You get the shimmy, but you don't punish me for it, right? So this was a prime punish opportunity, right? Stand heavy punch, whatever.
Yeah, I was kind of I was debating whether or not I should spin the meter, and I didn't want to burn myself out.
But I mean, I'm sure Bison has some meterless conversion off stand heavy punch, right? So you could just find a meterless shimmy route that you want to incorporate, because you're at a level where some of this stuff's starting to matter, right? So being able to bait, throw tech, right, shimmy correctly, and punish for that, it's pretty important, because delay tech is rampant in Diamond, right? So, oh, okay, that's unfortunate. Oh, it would have worked had it hit, but okay. So get jumped. Right, and then there's the D-rev again, right? So what I will say is that for Jinrai kicks, right, if you want to reversal this, you have to reversal before the medium Jinrai, right? So you have to reversal into the medium Jinrai, not after. So if you look, right, so you needed a D-rev here, right? Because if you D-rev here, it'll blow up the Jinrai, right? So let's take a look at that. Right. I mean, you're going to burn out for this, so it's not a great idea, but if you were going to D-rev, this is how it would work. Right, so you have to D-rev the actual button that I'm going to cancel into, right? So that's a little bit risky overall, but it'll work against a heavy punch. The reason it doesn't work here is because medium Jinrai is -7 on block, and D-rev is like 20 frames, right? So if we take a look at what happens here, right? So this is hit. This is the medium Jinrai, right? And I've already recovered by the time your D-rev comes out, right? So if you were going to reversal here, I think you need to have a 7-frame or better reversal, and I think Bison's level 1 is more than that. Let me see. Yeah, so Bison's level 1 is 10 frames, right? So even if you level 1 here, and then level 2 even, I think it would have gotten baited out, right? So you just got to be careful about reversal options against Jinrai here. Again, if you were going to D-rev, you have to D-rev the button, right? So after you block the button, then you input D-rev, right? So I'm going to punish correctly, such as life. You get whiff punish here. And then what happens here, it's kind of interesting. So if we take a look at these two situations, right? So let's counter hit. Let's punish counter because the button you pressed didn't cross me up. Right? And then here is an interesting counter hit, right? So what happened? How'd you get hit here? So if we look at this, so I block your jab. So I should be plus here after this, right? So I'm +1. Then I press my button, or +2, excuse me, out of that jab. Then I press my light punch here. But you're pressing a light kick, and you're minus here, -2. So even though you mashed it here, and it came out like right when it's supposed to, because I'm plus here, it means that my jab is going to beat whatever your button you press, right? So what I will say is that I think typically when you're playing, you try not to mash buttons when you're minus, right? So what I was doing here was I was just pressing jab when I was plus, and it was getting counter hits, right? So that usually means that you're pressing buttons when you're not really supposed to, if that makes sense, right? So yeah. After like your jab is blocked, so I'll give a little bit of leeway here because the jab here, right? If you had chained this into more jabs, right? So for Bison, I think his chain is like for light punches, right? So I think the crouching light kick is not part of that chain cancel unless you start it, right? So let me see here. Or maybe you didn't press it in time. Let's see. Let me just make sure that you can cancel this. So crouching light punch. Chains into 2. Okay, so it looks like you actually didn't chain this. So let's take a look. All right, so you press this. Okay, so that's what happened. So you're familiar with light frame chaining, right? And how that cancel works? Or no?
Say it again?
How chaining, light punch and light kick, light button chaining works in this game. So like how that cancel.
You normally just start with light kick.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically the way it works is that for most lights in the game, you have to take a look at your character for it to be specific. You know, certain lights don't cancel other lights, but there's a chaining, right? So you can cancel light buttons into other light buttons, right? So you can chain is what it's called, right? So it's not really a special cancel. It's like a special kind of cancel called chaining. So what happened here was that you didn't chain the crouching light kick from the crouching light punch, right? So if we look at Bison's frame data in Super Combo, right, or anywhere else really, but I think Super Combo is probably the one that shows it the best. If you take a look at the crouching light punch, right, it actually shows that you can chain this into another crouching light punch. You can chain this into crouching light kick, and you can also chain it into standing light punch, right? So what that means is that within Street Fighter 6, right, a lot of mix-ups happen with lights, right? So a lot of the frame trap stuff happens with lights. So because of chaining, right, it means that if I were to try to mash something against your light button, it'll get frame trapped, right? So if we take a look at here, right, if I chain this correctly, I actually get a conversion from here. Or let's see, what is this? Yeah. Right, if I mash this correctly. Right. So what happened there was that if you look at the frame meter, right? So let's take a look at the frame meter here while this is going because Ken's not going to do anything because the game's over, right? So normally if I press my jab, right, you can see it takes 6 frames, right, and it ends. So it takes 9 frames of recovery at the end, right? So but if I chain this, so if I press like slowly, right, it'll be the full startup of the button. And then the full 16 frames, basically, right? So, just block this, right? That's cool. I didn't know that Replay Review did that. So if you look, right, this is what happens with the jab. But if I chain them, right, you can see that the recovery is canceled effectively, right? So it cancels the recovery of this by 1 frame, and it also cancels the startup of the next button, right? So it comes together. So there's a gap here. that exists, right, that allows an opponent to be able to press a button after the light. So that can cause a frame trap, right? So if you had actually chained this correctly here, like you get a conversion there, right? So I was mashing against this, and probably shouldn't have been, but you hadn't really been doing this yet, right? So I would definitely work on the light confirms for Bison here, because this is huge for you, right? So if we take a look at what happens here, right, that's a +2 situation with a throw opportunity. Right? This is a pure strike throw mix-up that you get now. So you can go for a strike, right? You can continue your meaty pressure, or you can continue strike pressure. You can go for a throw, right? Or you can even go for a shimmy, right? So from this situation here, if Ken does a delay tech, you're going to be able to blow him up with a shimmy, right? So definitely, I think one of the things to take away here is that if you are going to continue with Bison, I would definitely work on those light confirms into light scissor kicks, right? It's gonna be really important. Because you get a lot of mileage off of that, and it's really just from lights, right? Even though the damage isn't a lot, you get a free mix-up situation after, and this is like I was saying earlier, integral to Bison's gameplay, right? So cool. But unfortunately, what happens here is that you don't chain it, right? So because of that, the next button you press doesn't get the cancel, right? It doesn't get the cancel off of this, and then I get to counter hit you because you're in the startup of your light here, right? So yeah, I mean, I think if we were to try to take away from the game we just played, I think that the biggest one's going to be being able to use light confirms, right? So getting more acquainted with using multiple lights, chaining lights together into light scissor kicks, right? Ending of that on hits, right? So hit confirming your light string into a special move would be the first thing, I think. And then the other thing would be sort of reducing your usage of DREV in general, right? So not taking an active option on defense and just blocking more, right? A lot of the damage I was getting in the game was based off of you going for DREV or some other option that I just blocked, right? So yeah. So what do you think so far? Any burning questions or anything you want to ask or clarification on, you think?
Not really. It all makes sense.
Okay. So let's take a look at one of the replays. I'm just gonna grab this one here, and let's see what's going on in your current ranked games.
Right back. Oh, once I'll be right back.
Sure. Hey, Beer Coach, what's good? How's it going? Hope you guys doing well tonight. Friday night. People will be playing games. Fight Rise and Newbie Fight Club both pretty active, so glad you guys stopping in, hanging out with me for a bit. So yeah, been trying to figure out how much of these I should be doing for runbacks versus newer players. Right now, I'm trying to get bound to like maybe 1 or 2 sessions a week. I did 3 sessions last week and the week before that, right? So it's kind of a lot, 6 sessions in 2 weeks, right? Got through the queue, and I think a lot of folks appreciate that, but it's tough, man. It's tough to do this type of thing. Hey, back? All right, cool.
Yep.
Just killing time on stream. All right, cool. So let's take a look at the replay here. So this is against a Diamond 2 jury, so let's take a look. Sean. All right, so let's take a look here. Okay, so I think this was fine. Did an aggressive option, right? They block it. It's okay. But this needs to be driver. Yeah.
I made all the.
Yeah. So definitely need to. If you're landing, you land it twice.
Yeah.
Right. So 100%, this needs to be a driver's cancel, right? So anyway. Oh, that was one thing I guess we should talk about is how to use Devil's Rise, or how people use it. We'll talk about it in a sec. Let's see what happens the rest of this replay. All right. So jury stocks up. So going from here. Right, so Bison's playing at this space in general. It's kind of like a Honda, where they're looking for a headbutt or a Cyber Crusher, right? So you're right here, this is saying that throw a fireball, I'm going to Cyber Crusher you, right? And you have charge, right, if you look. Although you kind of give it up. to move forward. And then you have charge again. And give it up. But generally speaking, when you're playing at that spacing, you're looking for some sort of neutral skip option like the Psycho Crusher. You're trying to kill a fireball, right? What I would say is that if that is your game plan in that situation, probably just want to down back and build charge, right? So if the jury is not interested in engaging with you there, then do in fact threaten the Psycho Crusher, right? Because from here, since you're moving, it's not really, if the jury is paying attention, they know you don't have charge, right? So no charge, right? So, they can kind of throw a fireball here, wouldn't get punished for it. So let's see what happens. Okay, dash under, gets thrown for it. Okay, so I mean, I don't hate the decision to drive rush there for Oki, right? It's probably not a bad option. Obviously, the jury goes for reversal here, so that kind of sucks. But what I will say is that it's just something you have to pay attention to for the rest of the set, right? So it's like, oh, this jury just did a wake up DP after they didn't back roll here and after my drive rush, right? So it's likely they were reacting to your drive rush and just DPing, right? So it's something you can consider the next time the situation happens. Like, can I change what I'm doing to bait that DP, right? So fortunately, take the reversal here. That's just life, right? Ooh, okay. So here, right? So I think we had talked about this previously, but like back rolling after a knockdown, you should definitely be doing that more, right? I wasn't really paying attention too much during our other game, but I think you don't do this a whole lot. Definitely, hold 2 buttons, roll backwards, right? So from here in this situation, jury is pretty plus here. So if she dashes at you, she's gonna have a plus range, right? But she doesn't. But if she did, she would have it in your face, right? So if you look at the situation after this hit lands, right? Right. So if I don't back tech, right? Look what happens, right? So this is what you did, right? So if we look, the space that you're standing at here, like you didn't really get any distance from jury, right? But if I do the back roll here, right? Look how much further I am from jury here, right? So even if jury dashed up, she wouldn't be point blank to really threaten anything, right? So against most characters, and I think we talked about this in our previous session, but against most characters, you want to do the back roll mid-screen, as long as it doesn't put you into the corner in particular, right? Or if you're already in the corner, then you probably don't want to back tech then either. It doesn't really make sense. But you do want to ensure that mid-screen, when you get knockdowns like this, that you back roll, right? So create space. For most characters, I think you really don't want to do it against like Guile, JP, right? Like zoners, excuse me, and like Sim, right? So those guys that kind of want that space, you probably don't want to back roll against them mid screen. But for most other characters that win by being in your face pressing buttons, especially like a Jury, Ken, Ryu, basically any of the Shotos, basically almost everyone, you want to back roll mid screen, right? Create extra space. Don't give them a free opportunity to mix you up, or free Oki opportunity, right? Make them have to spend drive or make them use a resource to do it, right? That's kind of part of the game. So, all right, going back. All right, so you get up. Again, it doesn't quite matter here because the jury elects to do nothing. Maybe worried about a reversal or something for whatever reason, but they'd like to do nothing, so it doesn't really hurt you here. But in the future, you do want to back roll. All right, so you get baited a little bit here, right? But the jury whiffs their throw, right? And we're back to neutral again. So let's see what happens. All right, so Devil's Reverse is kind of a tough one. Personally, I don't really know how Bisons are supposed to use it, so I wish I could give you better advice. The only thing I know is that typically when you do use it, if you are getting anti-aired for it, it means that you're not doing enough in neutral to make them not think about the Devil's Reverse, right? So usually I see it on like knockdowns and stuff. So like you knock them down, you do that to kind of mix up left right or whatever. But you probably need to talk to a Bison main on how you want to use Devil's Reverse here. I will say that if you are getting anti-aired for it a ton, or in this case an air-to-air, you may want to reconsider your usage of it against this particular person at that point in time. As you go for it here, he gets kind of beat, right? And it could be because they were trying to jump too. Like, if you look... Well, I guess maybe they do react to it. with the air to air. So Wake Up D-Rev gets, unfortunately, a normal DI and he gets thrown.
Yep.
Again, that's kind of the defensive option selection, right? So using Wake Up D-Rev. He did block the first couple of times, though, so it's okay. I think parry is fine there. You didn't necessarily need a D-Rev. Ooh.
I meant to EX that.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think EX would have worked there. At least it would have hit. But a little short. Okay, so Jury has a drive rush plus frames. Ooh, caught mashing. Okay, cool. So, again, another situation here where you probably don't want to be pressing buttons is definitely after blocking a drive rush button, right? So even if you aren't sure if the button's plus or minus, if they drive rush it, it's probably going to be plus, right? It's more likely plus than not plus for most buttons, right? Especially someone like Jury, right? I think there's a pretty small number of buttons that are still minus or even not, or like 0 on drive rush, but Jury's buttons aren't any of those, right? So you can assume that you're plus here, right? Okay, so, or that they're plus. So you're -6, right? This is pretty big. You can't really press anything that would beat, like, your fastest button is 4 frames, right? With the frame advantage, it is here. Jury can press like a, what is it? Very large button. 2 frames, 4 frames. I can't do math right now. So if you do, like, you can basically press almost anything that will beat your 4 frame, right? So they can press like a 10 frame button, and it will trade with your 4 frame, right? So like their buttons are basically coming out 6 frames faster, right? So they can press up to a 9 frame here and beat your 4 frame button, basically. So that's a lot of like crouch heavies and stuff. So what happens, right? So you block here. Now, what's interesting here is that the Jury doesn't do this right away, right? They actually delay a little bit here before this comes out. So they're a little bit late on this coming out. But if you look what happens, so even though there's huge plus advantage here, and you press right away, right? You press your button right away, it still gets counter hit, right? Because it's too slow in terms of frame advantage, right? So this is something you'll have to kind of ingrain, is to try not to press buttons like this when you are minus in any like slightly larger capacity, right? So if you are -4 or more in these situations, right, you really can't be pressing anything. Now, if you're like -2 or something, something like that, you can. There's some, debate on if you can or can't press there, right, in a -1, -2 situation. But if you're -6, right, this is pretty big. So it's hard to justify pressing anything because the Jury's next follow-up will pretty much be a frame trap for you, right? That said, if you are going to mash something, right, you're like, oh, I know I'm minus, but I'm going to press anyway because I'm calling them out, I would definitely mash a 4-frame move here. So you should be pressing like Crouching Light Punch, right, not Crouching Medium Punch. Crouching Medium Punch is like a 6-frame move, right? It takes a little bit longer to come out. But if you are going to mash something when you're minus, mash your fastest move. Or mash D-Rev, right? One of those two. Like reversal, I mean. You don't have level 1 here, so you can't quite do that. D-Rev might have been correct here if you are going to mash something. But trying to basically press when you're minus this much is almost always going to get frame trapped, right? So that's why you got hit here. And you take a combo for it. So, again, if you're minus, consider not pressing, right? Try to block it out. Go for parry, maybe reversal, but blocking is typically what you
That's something I still gotta learn is when I'm negative and when I'm plus.
Yeah,
plus,
and it's something that you'll have to just figure out.
Still learning frame advantages.
Yeah. And a pretty universal thing though is after drive rush, right? So once you block this, right, you don't necessarily have to know how plus or how minus you are. You just have to know that you are minus, right? So, like, oh, I know that it's not my turn right now, so I'm not going to press anything. Or I know it's not my turn right now, but I'm going to try to challenge them, and by that, I'm going to use my fastest button, right? So, like, if the Jury elects to do something unorthodox here, maybe not unorthodox, but does something greedy here. So, like, okay, so if I take a step back, right? Well, what happens during these types of mix-ups in general, right? So plus frames, why are they good, right? Why does everyone want them, right? And all that stuff. So what happens, right? Typically, someone presses a button and it's plus, right? So their plus on block if they're plus on block and they're in point blank in front of you, right, they can threaten a strike throw mix up, right? So if they're plus 2 or better, that means that they can threaten a strike throw, meaning that the next thing they do, if they press a strike, like a 4-frame move or something like that, or that's within, you know, the bounds of the plus frames, or if they go for a throw, it's going to come out faster than your fastest button, right? So fastest button in the game is 4-frame, right? Throws are 5-frame. So what that means is that if the opponent is plus 2 or better, if they go for a throw immediately after that, then your jab or your 4-framer will get counter hit thrown, right? So the throw will beat your strike basically, right? So that's what happens with plus frames in general, right? So plus 2, plus 3, plus 4, right? Those kind of advantages, you can threaten to throw after, right? So once it gets 2+, there's some other things you have to worry about, like, you know, throws not quite hitting because you're still in block stun, but don't worry about that too much. But what does that mean, though, in terms of defending that? So if you're minus in that situation, typically what you want to do is just block, right? Because your button selection, no matter what you press, will lose to both the strike and the throw, whatever their opponent's follow-up is, right? So a lot of times what people will do is they'll either continue blocking, right? So block out until their block string is done, meaning they're no longer in any sort of advantage, right? Back to neutral. Or you can do something like a delay tech, right? So if you delay tech through the pressure, through the buttons that they're pressing, then you'll block everything that they do, as well as tech a throw if they go for one, right? So like if you had delay teched this and then the following button, right, you can do that, and that will defend against the strike, right? So that's like, or defend against the plus frames. So that's like the initial, like, how do I deal with the with plus frames for my opponent, right? Then if you go to the next step, right, and now your opponent has learned that you are blocking or teching their pressure, right? So from there, then they have to figure out on offense what they want to do next, right? Do they want to try to shimmy you, try to bait your throw, or bait your throw tech, right? And then, you know, that's the game as you continue adjusting back and forth against each other on offense and defense. You know, how does they deal with plus frames, right? That said, one of the things that can happen, right, and this is when you can actually press buttons, is that when an opponent is plus, they could go for a bigger button that does have a gap that can be jabbed, right? So let's say they're only plus 2, they go for like a 10-frame move, right? A really big button, for example, thinking that you're going to block, right? And then you, having the read on them, decide to press on minus frames, and that'll interrupt them, right? So that's one thing you can press against, right? Now again, this is not like something you want to do all the time, right? It's more of a read thing and more of like an adjustment being made to what your opponent is doing to you. But I just wanted to illustrate that there are times when you can press when you're minus like that, but it has to be a very specific reason to do so. 9 times out of 10, it is just better to block and delay tech to some extent situations like this, right? So on defense, blocking is good, delay teching is okay, but blocking is better, right? Like being passive on defense here, just blocking it out, waiting for Jury to finish their block string, and then spacing out so then you're back to neutral, is typically how you get back in the game, right? Because if you make a mistake here and go for the jab or something, get frame trapped, you take a combo and knockdown, right? So now this is even worse, right? You have Oki, right? That's like, they're coming at you now, right? So, cool. Do you have works out here? Looks like they were going for something. What were they going for? Right, so I take it back. You're going for your crouching light kick, right? That's 5 frames. Still too slow, right? So you do want to, again, not press anything here after that plus. And if you do want to press something, use a 4 frame, so crouching light punch, right? So, unfortunately, get hit here. But wake up D-Rev. It looks like they're going for a low. And they actually made a mistake here, right? So that low, technically, should have recovered in time for them to block this. It looks like because they were mashing it, a second one might come out or something, or they weren't blocking it, and they get hit. So, kind of got lucky there. I do think that, again, after that knockdown, just blocking is probably better overall. But if you wanted to reversal there, I don't hate that decision. It worked out, so. Okay. Ooh. They got whiff punished? Okay.
That surprised me too. I didn't even see it hit.
Yeah, I know, right? It was like, what? Yeah, your rich girl sweep, right? Gets whiff punished by that, and then you get thrown. So now you're burned out here, right? So this is probably gonna be tough overhead, I'm assuming. Oh, we'll draw throw. Okay. So yeah, I think like if we were to look at this round, I think that part of it was that you weren't able to really get any offense started by using Bison's kind of get in tools with like, you know, scissor kicks and some of his buttons. Right. And then if we go through this, I think there's just some, it's basically you guys weren't really playing any sort of grounded neutral, to be honest, right? You weren't really interacting with each other. You were just kind of both using the tools you have to get in as best you could, right? So like if you go back to this situation, all of a sudden you do this, right? They whiff the throw. They hit the knockdown here, and then it's drive rush, right? And go from here. Right? The jury just kind of waited for you to do something, and then went in after that, right? That's so crazy. It hits from so far. That's silly. Anyway, so you take this knockdown here, right? The drive rush in, the drive rush throw, you're burned out, right? And you have no defensive option anymore, right? The only thing you can do is level 1 here. And you have no idea if that's going to work, right? So you end up taking a throw. So yeah, I mean, again, I think like if we were to try to improve the gameplay from here, I think it kind of comes down to being a little more comfortable with Bison's toolset, right? So being able to use scissor kicks, being able to use drive rush low, right? So, you know, low forward the drive rush, and then converting light string pressure into bomb plan, right? So this game. Okay, let's see the conversion. Good, right? So I don't mind that at all. It's pretty good. 4 bars for a little expensive, but this is fine, right? So the situation now is you plant the bomb, right? You have corner positioning. You're walking in, right? They have to deal with bomb plant in some capacity, so let's see what you do here. Okay, so I don't necessarily think the decision to back up in Cyber Crusher is a bad one overall, because you're able to basically detonate the bomb, right? Right, you get basically plus frames from this. The issue though is that you almost burn out for it, right? So take a look at your drive meter. Right, 1 drive rush cancel. Right, so 7 seconds into the round, you only have a bar left, right? So this type of meter expenditure is kind of tough, especially for a character like Bison. It kind of relies on that drive to continue pressure and stuff. So when you were talking about when can I go on offense and when can I go on defense, a lot of that is dictated by how much drive bar you have left, right? So you actually do a good job here of landing the hit and putting them on the defensive side, right? So they actually did a very good job there. You know, landed a hit, got the drive rush in, got the bomb plant and all that. But you kind of give out the pressure by backing up, and then you spend 2 bars for plus frames, right? So this is not like a good way to spend your meter, really, because the reward, unfortunately, is not a ton, right? So if you look, like, you spent almost all your meter, and the only thing you get out of this is a plus 10 situation, right? So not even like guaranteed damage, you actually just get potential for damage, right? So let's see what happens here. Right. And then they are able to block out your pressure. Right, so you clearly have done that light string you just did. Like, that's pretty textbook, right? Ideally, you confirm it on hit, but you know the fact that you did it means you know how to do it. Obviously, the DI comes out late for them, so you could have counter DI'd here, but you would have ran out of meter, or parried or whatever. But yeah, I think the meter expenditure that you went for here ultimately is kind of what I think is going to do you in, right? Because you spent 2 bars for not a ton of reward. So let's see what happens. Okay, get dive kicked. And then here, what happened? You went for a delay tech and he got clipped, it looks like. Alright, so I think that was just a little early on the delay tech here. Let's see. Yeah, a little early on the delay tech here. You want to delay this by about 5 to 7 frames, so like pause another beat and then press input the throw tech, right? So D-Rev again, unfortunately this time it burns you out. So you're able to get out of the pressure, right? But the D-rev is what burns you out here. So there's two things you can do for this, right? One is that your meter is low anyway. From here. Right. So you see the jury drive rushing. You don't have any meter. So I think a better option here would have been level 1, right? So just going for your super here, if you are going to reversal out of this, is probably correct, right? So at least if you're going to reversal, right? So just like straight up, you know. Right. Right, now look at the meter situation after this. So you're down a bar of super, but that doesn't really matter, right? You're going to have level 3 by the end of this round probably, if you survive long enough. Definitely have it for next round if you get into it. But meter-wise, you're not burned out. You did some damage, stop the pressure, right? And you have some meter back, right? And the situation is back to neutral, right? So, like, I think that something you should consider adding if you are going to reversal is to use level 1 for the invulnerability, right? It's still a little bit faster than D-Rev because I think Bison Super is like 10 frames or whatever. But it's still an invincible option, and you can definitely do that in a situation where you're going to D-Rev anyway, right? Like you were trying to do wake up D-Rev there, right? So if we go back, right? If you're going to wake up with an option there, because you're reading in the overhead here, or, you know, jury can't really cancel into anything that would bait you, use the super instead, right? For the reversal. So if you are going to do it, do that, right? Save your drive because that's more important for you to be able to win the round. And use your super beater, right? Because again, you can't, if you die this round, right, you can't use it anymore, right? So,
yeah.
Ouch. So likely here, you know, you're burned out. So whatever button you pressed here is probably gonna get DI'd anyway, right? So they probably just wait. Either they, it looks like they just woke up with a drive reverse or drive impact here, and you slid into it. It's unfortunate. When you are burned out, again, you have to be careful about going for those high-risk moves because everything is now susceptible to DI, right? So they could just DI you. Like a lot of people will just DI you with impunity when you're burned out, right? So, all right, take a level 1 combo here for some reason. All right, so Jury sends you across the screen. You're in the corner now. So what happens? All right, double dash up here. All right, so now you have to be thinking about drive impact, right, from the opponent. So let's see what happens. Perfect. This was 100% correct. I love what happened here, right? So they went for a throw, you read it, or at least you thought it was something was coming, you just jumped. 100% perfect. Though the only note I would give here was maybe come down with a cross-up button if you have one, right? Right, so I think Bison's cross-up is what? Crouching...
It's a medium kick.
Medium kick? Is it medium?
It's one of those, he's so tiny.
Yeah. Might just be the jump mark. Okay. I guess you couldn't cut down the button. That's unfortunate. I thought you could, but I guess not. So no notes then. My only note would have been if you had the cross-up opportunity to take it, but since you don't seem to be able to do that, this is totally fine. Right. Oh, that's too good. So this is perfect, right? This is exactly what you would want. Right. Bomb plant, plus frames, right? You're in the corner. Life's good for you right now, other than not having meter. Okay, I see what happened here. So you were afraid of getting wake up DP'd, right? Right there. Like you went for a shimmy here, but you can see like you back up a little too far. Right, bomb plant. And you start backing up, right? Assuming that they were going to DP you, which had happened earlier, right? So I don't hate that decision. But I think you back up too far. Right. That said, let's see what happens the rest of the sequence. Oof. Yeah. That's just unfortunate, I think. Any of those jumps, like, this should have worked, right? If you press anything here, I think you could probably press, like, a stand heavy punch or something. You probably clip her, right? So from here. Okay, so let me just take a step back here. So from this scenario situation right here, right? Let's take a look. Life-wise, is closer, right? Meter-wise, you still have half a bar to rebuild before you have meter back, right? She has 3 bars, so a driver's cancel for her is on the table. But the situation wise is you just put it in the corner with bomb plant, right? So from here, you could continue to pressure, right? Or you can go for shimmy like you did here, which is also fine. But let's see what happens. What I think you should do though is probably not jump. Like you didn't need to. That said, it works. It works because they went for the DI here, right? And that would have been tough had you pressed the button into this. That said, you know, the jump here, like in a vacuum, probably not correct. But in this situation, it was correct, right? Because you jump over the DI here. But when you land, you know, you have to consider what you can do from here, right? So I'm pretty sure you could probably just press like something like this, right? Or even something like this, right? That's just a reaction thing, I think. Like you saw the DI, weren't quite sure. You normally use Drive Rush to punish that, so weren't ready for it. But that's just a range thing, right? So if we look at the situation here, like range-wise, all of Bison's buttons will reach, right? In terms of heavy, even a medium probably. So anyway, throw him back in the corner here, unfortunately. Good tech. Oh, there it is, right? So oh, okay. Let's see what happens. Oh, that sucks. Okay, so again, I think if I were to try to give you something actionable from here, it ends up being just getting a little more familiar with Bison's toolset, right? So how his buttons work, what are his cancels, save cancels, right? And how do I utilize that, right? So, because I think game plan wise, it's more or less okay in terms of like what you're trying to do, which is I want to press buttons in their face, right, as a game plan. But I do think that in order to make it a little more coherent, you just need to be more familiar with Bison's toolset. So what buttons do I want to press in neutral? What buttons do I want to press when I'm up close? And then some of the combo routing, right? How do I route combos into a situation where I can try to go for bomb plant? Or if I do a light confirm, how do I do that into like a light scissor kicks and go from there, right? So that's just those familiarity things. Because looking at the replay here, in terms of like gameplay, it's about right, I think, for Diamond in this sense here. You know, there's not a lot of kind of grounded neutral interaction happening. What's usually happening more is that both players are trying to like jump or DI or drive rush or do other things like system wise to try to get around, to move around and be able to land hits. So it's pretty typical. I think it's not, you know, outside the realm of like what I think normal is for this range. But I do think that what's going to help you get out of this is, with Bison anyway, is by doing the things I was talking about, right? So being able to use Bison's toolset effectively. So take a look at like what buttons you want to press in neutral. Again, what buttons you want to press when you're up close, far away. What buttons you want to press when they're on your Oki, right? So what setups from that. I do think like you start simple though. So like I would just say learn the buttons, the ranges and all that, and then learn light confirms. So being able to do, you know, chain 3 lights and then hit confirm that into a light scissors or light bomb plant, I guess you can go for. So those two things. And then make sure that your combo routing when you do land a hit, right? So let's say you landed low forward to the drive rush, make sure that that routes into heavy bomb, right? Or at least bomb plant. That way you'll be able to continue your pressure, right? So combo routing there. And then on defense, just less derevs, right? So block more, be less active, be willing to block out strings, use delay tech if you need to, right? And go from there. So, yeah, I mean, I know it's kind of a lot, but what do you think so far? Does that sound reasonable-ish, like in line with what you're hoping to hear, or what do you think?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. So yeah, I mean, again, I think like you're on the right track for sure in terms of like how you want to approach the game. Like you do want to get in there and press buttons and do that, and I like that. Be aggressive, I like that too. But you do have to make sure that that aggression is tempered with something, right? Because if you just spend all your meter trying to drive rush in, like you do a bunch of low forward drive rush that's blocked, or like raw drive rush or OD moves, and if you run out of meter, it's very difficult for you to continue that pressure. Right? It's like when you were burned out here, like from this situation right here, right? It's very difficult for you to try to get back in the game, right? Like you don't have access to any of the OD stuff, right? You don't have access to like extensions anymore. or any of your defensive options, right? Other than like super meter. And you can't close distance with Bison's drive rush anymore, right? So you have to walk up and do stuff to hit them, right? So additionally, you have to deal with opponents DIing you, right? So it can be tough. So really, you want to avoid burnout too. I guess that'd be number 5 on the list, right? Avoid burnout overall. So, all right, cool, man. Anything else you want to ask? Because normally for runbacks, I only do one kind of first to 3, because the rest of it ends up being like replay review stuff and kind of talking over. So, is there anything else you wanted to chat about or ask about before you wrap up?
No, actually, you pretty much covered everything.
Okay, cool. So yeah, just to sum up, one more time, just so you have it, is really just like learn Bison's toolkit, right? So that's like step 1. Well, go to the lab, press the buttons, see how far or how close you have to be to land them, and which buttons are like your 6-frame punish, or like what buttons use in what situations. That'd be step 1. The second thing would be learning light confirms, right? So being able to do 3 lights, hit confirm that into a special move like light bomb plant or light scissor kicks, right? That would be the second thing. I think the third thing I said was being less active on defense, right? So making sure that you block more often, right? And I already forgot what the other 2 was. Well, the not burning out, and then there was one other one. I already forgot. You have to look at the VOD to look at it. But I think if you those things are immediately actionable for you, though, right? So you can go to the lab, practice the light confirms, practice the spacing for the buttons, get comfortable with that, and then from there you can go, or you can go from there into other things, right? Oh, the other I remember now. It's the combo routing, right? So routing combos into light, like on a drive rush cancel, routing combos into the bomb plant, so that you have ability to continue your pressure, right? That's kind of fundamental to Bison. So cool, man. I think that's it, right? Is there anything else you wanted to talk about or cover?
No.
Cool. Come in. So yeah, I'm just gonna do the outro real quick. So you can hang out on Discord if you want. I'm gonna meet you on stream. Otherwise, have a good night.
All right, man.
Yep. Take care. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. This has been Sit Down and Shut Up. This is a Runback edition, so typically for these, I try to keep it a little shorter, kind of just talk about the progression from the last episode to this one. So we tend to only run one first to 3. But yeah, I run these through the Fight Rise Discord. So Fight Rise is a fighting game community focused on Street Fighter 6 for the most part, and helping players get into the game. They do a bi-weekly tournament through their One Fight Stand series. It is a 7-round Swiss tournament if you are in Master. And if you are not in Master, you can still sign up, and they'll put you in a rank-separated pool that will be, you'll still play 8 rounds typically of round, or 7 or 8 rounds of round robin. Maybe 7 rounds, I think. And it'll be round robin, right? So it'll be split up rank-wise. They also do community events through their Erst Fight series. You can check that out at twitch.tv/FightRiseFGC. Basically, it's community showcase events, right? So showcasing fighters in the community that have been showing up to OFS and contributing and all that stuff. I do commentary for that every so often when they run it. They ran one recently that I was on, and I think they're running one for the EU coming up pretty soon here. And yeah, they also do occasionally, these are charity streams. So if you take a look back in December, they did one to raise money for the Raiden Foundation. So good stuff from them there. If you wanted to get a session like this, join the Fight Rise Discord. So let me put that in the chat. Join the Fight Rise Discord. It is, if you look at a channel called Sit Down and Shut Up, there'll be a channel for, there'll be a pinned message that shows how to join for the queue and all that good stuff. So you'll be able to get a session like this. Additionally, they also have a league format through their Big League KO. So all this is a league format for a round robin 8-person pool. So you get a pool for 8 people. You play a round robin. You play 2 matches a week. They're all first to 5s over the course of 4 weeks, right? And then at the end of it, whoever, if you win, your pool or whatever, there's a continuation bracket that they'll showcase, and they'll showcase the winners of that for both the upper pools and master pools and the diamond pools, I believe, is how they're going to do it. If you're interested in that type of league format as well, please join the Discord. This season right now is still ongoing, so you may have to wait till next season, whenever that is. But pay attention there if you really want to, because want to get into that, because the slots fill up quick for that. Cool. And I'm also part of the Newbie Fight Club. So the Newbie Fight Club is a fighting game community focused on helping newer players get into the game, into fighting games. They run lobby nights every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Their main sort of newbie night is on Wednesdays. Every other Friday, I believe they run a special bracket. I think they do like a double elimination bracket on for every other Friday. They also do a modern tournament once a month on Mondays. So if any of those things sound interesting to you, take a look at Newbie Fight Club Discord, join up. I'm pretty active in both these Discords, so if you wanted to reach out to me, chat with me, whatever, get games, feel free. I'm pretty active, so just tag me, and I'm more than happy to talk to you. Other than that, just thank you guys for watching. I know I don't always respond to chat while I'm working with somebody, so I do appreciate your messages, your likes, your follows, your subs, and all that stuff. If you wanted to see past sessions of this, I recommend checking them out on YouTube because the Twitch player is kind of not great. Twitch, please fix your player for that to watch VODs. So, but yeah, other than that, thank you guys so much for watching and have a good night and weekend.